Presenting on two works that we covered in class, namely Shakespeare's King Lear and Sophocles' Antigone. The first piece that I will be talking about is the Shakespeare's King Lear, which I highly recommend. Not only is this piece an entertaining play, but it also explores profound themes that make us reflective about ourselves and allow us to make connections with modern world. To give the summary in brief details, King Lear, an Asian king of Britain who decides to step down as a king and pass his throne to his three daughters, Cordelia, Goneril, and Regan. Regan and Goneril inherited all of King's wealth because they expressed their strong love towards their father, even though it was a bluff. But Cordelia was disowned because she didn't express her love towards her father, despite loving him the most. After the two daughters receive the power, they decide to kick out King Lear out. Meanwhile, a nobleman named Gloucester also experiences a family problem where his illegitimate son Edmund tricks Gloucester to think that his legitimate son Edgar plans to kill him. So Edgar is forced to flee. After King Lear was kicked out, Cordelia and her army comes to save him, but both ends up being captured, and Cordelia gets executed, and King Lear dies out of grief. On the other hand, upon finding out that he has been tricked, Gloucester attempted suicide, which is hindered by Edgar. In the climactic scene, Edmund and Edgar deals, and Edmund ends up dying. Obviously, there are more details to this story, but it's been omitted because it gets too long. The first important theme that I want to explore is the idea of unconditional love. It is usually said that parents have an unconditional love towards their children, or children have an unconditional love towards their parents. Although I'm not completely denying this, it was proven wrong in this story. The two daughters of Lear, Goneril and Regan, expressed their love towards King Lear only to gain power from King Lear, and after they inherited the land from King Lear, they acted rudely towards King Lear. And King Lear disowned Cordelia when Cordelia wasn't expressing her love towards her father. So the only person who had an unconditional love was Cordelia, who loved her father despite being disowned. So this play allows you to reflect if the people around you love and care about you sincerely, as well as if you are able to love and care about them unconditionally. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is this unconditional love and care, as we saw from Cordelia's effort to save her father despite being disowned. In my opinion, the most relatable character in this play is Edmund, and his character really makes the play profound and interesting. He's treated as an outcast for being a bastard child between Gloucester and a prostitute. So he doesn't have the rights to inherit his father's wealth and land in the be- and land. And in the beginning of the play, he even gets mocked by his father for being a bastard child. The way he is treated in the society causes Edmund to be obsessed with the idea of being accepted from the society. As said in the summary, Edmund tricks Gloucester to think that Edgar is trying to kill Gloucester, and that Edmund is saving Gloucester from Edgar. This is so that Edgar inherits all of the wealth from Gloucester instead of Gloucester's legitimate son. But in my opinion, what Edmund really wanted wasn't the wealth. Instead, he wanted the acceptance from the society by showing his nobility of saving his father and showing he is worthy of inheriting the wealth of his father, despite being a bastard child. Edmund was the most relatable character in this play to me because, like Edmund, I care about the society's judgment towards me, and I make a lot of decisions based on it. I think this is true for almost everyone in modern society, where access to information about other people is easy with social media and other medias. A lot of decisions are made based on keeping up appearance in society, and I don't think it's particularly a bad thing because one may decide to work hard to achieve something great so that society accepts them. But obviously, in this play, since it's a tragedy, Edmund's decision caused a tragic event. Another theme that this play another theme that this play makes audience think is the qualities of a good leader. In this story, Lear is portrayed as a leader who doesn't have the qualities to make people want to follow him. For instance, he made 100 soldiers look after him after stepping down, and he has resented his soldiers for unjustified reasons. Lear also influences people to manipulate and bully, which we saw from his daughters and his soldiers. At this point in the story, the audience cannot sympathize for Lear. This is a relevant topic in today's world since we have seen some leaders with similar flaws as King Lear in recent years. The figure that I could make a connection to was Putin. Like King Lear, Putin is in later years of his life, and I think he does not have the ability to make sane decisions anymore. Despite this, because Putin and King Lear are both very manipulative, people are forced to follow them. I could also make connection with dictatorship in North Korea. Not only is the leader of North Korea very manipulative, but like King Lear, they influence their family and people around them to be also manipulative, treating their citizens like slaves. The second work that I will be talking about is Sophocles' Antigone, which I don't recommend as highly as King Lear. The basic summary of story of Sophocles' Antigone is that Oedipus, a king of a city called Thebes, has died, and his two sons, Eracles and Polynices, ended up fighting for the throne. Both ended up dying, and Oedipus's brother-in-law Creon became the new king. Meanwhile, uh, Oedipus's daughter, uh, Oedipus's daughter Antigone was set to marry Haemon, who's the son of Creon. Antigone wanted to bury Polynices, whose body was wrought in the pain of death, which went against Creon because Creon wanted to punish Polynices for committing treason towards Thebes. Antigone was stubborn and kept trying to bury Polynices' body, so Creon decided to put Antigone on execution. But Antigone hanged herself before the execution, and Haemon follows Antigone. Then Creon's wife Eurydice ends up killing herself because of Haemon's death, and Creon was left alone. The reason I cannot enjoy this story as much was because some of the decisions the characters make in the story is hard to follow. For instance, Antigone was stubborn about burying Polynices' body because of her devotion to God and its idea that any person must be buried in their death. And had it not been for this Antigone's obsession, such tragedy would not have happened. Most people nowadays can separate between reality and their religious beliefs, so for me, it was hard to make sense of this Antigone's action, and it was kind of frustrating to see such tragedy unfold because of this. Antigone also kills herself as a martyr, who dies nobly in service of God. There are minorities who decide to die as martyrs in parts of the world nowadays, such as Islamic states in the Middle East. But it is it is the minority, and while it was portrayed as somewhat of a common practice in this story, so this idea of strong obsession towards God negatively affect enjoyability of this story. However, in terms of consuming the historical context at the time, it was interesting to see how people put such a large emphasis on devotion to God when there were no technologies, no entertainments, and no salvation other than the God. To talk about some positive aspects, the most interesting aspect of this story is whether the audience sympathized for Antigone or for Creon. It is easy to imagine most people would take Antigone's side, since Antigone is the protagonist who honors her family and goes against power. Meanwhile, Creon is portrayed as the villain with an absolute power, and his character isn't very likable because he is inflexible and makes sexist insults. But based on perspectives, one can be on the side of Creon. Although Creon seems self-centered and quite controlling, he exercises his power for Thebes, not for himself. For instance, Polynices inflicted major damage towards Thebes, and Creon's treatment with Polynices was to keep stability in the city by giving punishment to the leader of the enemy. And when Creon gave punishment to Antigone, it wasn't because he wanted to see Antigone suffer, but because she broke the law, and there's no exemption for breaking the law. As a leader, one must keep integrity for stability. In the play, it was said that were civilians were against punishment towards Antigone. Even so, even so, making an exemption in law creates a stepping stone in the future because people will ask for more exemptions in the future. So we see that Antigone takes her actions based on emotions, and her justification for her actions is the divine law. Meanwhile, Creon makes decisions based on reason, and his justification for his decisions are man-made law. In the context of modern society, I think the latter is more accepted, and that is why I personally thought Creon was more justified. But regardless of which side the audience sympathizes for, the fact that both sides are possible is the interesting aspect of this play. So this was my presentation on King Lear and Sophocles' Antigone. Although both are recommended, I personally think King Lear has more profound meanings and is more worth reading. Thank you.